Hey, what's up guys? It's Sauceman K, and today we're here for another amazing video. So today we're going to be breaking down why True Form Sukuna is the strongest character in JJK. So when I say True Form Sukuna, I just mean like his Heian form, so just like him when he's in that form. Not necessarily with the World Slash, but just, anything that he can use in the Heian form. So I guess, yeah, barring the World Slash, we're not going to give him that. Just, say like, Sukuna fighting in his Heian form. Um, so for starters, I think it's probably best to lay out Sukuna's abilities compared to the rest of the verse. In terms of speed and power, Sukuna is shown to be a step above anyone else in the series. He's able to react to a 200% hollow purple at point blank range while only losing an arm. He might lose two arms, but an arm or two, it's not really anything to worry about. He could just regenerate that, which he does on panel. The feat itself is pretty impressive once you consider the fact that the barrier that Gojo had used while firing the 200% hollow purple was used to actually cause Sukuna to misread the output of the attack. So from Sukuna's perspective, he was basically sitting there standing still, and then the 200% hollow purple pretty much spawned in front of his face, right? He was only able to notice the insane, output of the attack right before it hit him, right? Which if you look at the panel, he is like shocked, and then he throws up his hands. It's like a last, minute, like sort of defense against, an attack that he pretty much had no idea even existed until, it was in his face, right? If you take into account the fact that, characters like Yuki Tsukimo, who are not hailed as the strongest, are able to do things like possibly destroy the entire planet with their ultimate attack, then I think it's pretty obvious and safe to assume that this 200% hollow purple, the ultimate unlimited technique from the strongest sorcerer Gojo, like I said, while getting amped to 200% by multiple other people, would at least also be planetary. Just if Yuki's able to create a planetary attack, then Gojo's ultimate attack that's amped beyond belief would definitely be at least on that level, if not definitely above it. Like, just being honest with yourself, right? Like, there's no reason why Gojo would be significantly weaker than Yuki in this circumstance, especially when you factor in how Hollow Purple works. It's like a, matter erasing ability type thing. Like, let's be real, it's definitely stronger than Planetary, and Sukuna is able to just catch it with two hands, while barely even being able to react to the attack because he only noticed it last minute, right? Adding on to this as well, Sukuna is shown to be able to react to Gojo's combat speed, which would include his blue enhanced movements. I believe, I think it's Nanami. We get like a little flashback sequence where he talks about how all of Gojo's like serious punches and movements are amped with blue. And we get context as to like how fast these movements truly are once we see Kashimo, the reanimated sorcerer, fight Sukuna after Gojo is unfortunately turned into a Kit Kat bar, But how else would he get there if Sukuna's still fighting Gojo? So it kind of makes sense, right? So Gojo dies, and then we see Kashimo fight Sukuna, in which case we get a pretty insane showcase of speed, at least from Sukuna's end. I guess from Kashimo as well, since he's part of the feat. But so previous peaks of the speed in the series belong to characters such as Toji, right? Who Toji was shown to be able to react and perceive cursed energy enhanced electricity, and it was to the point that it was almost like slow motion. Like he was like turning his head, and he like watched it sort of like come at him in like a slowed down, like Matrix, like bullet time sort of way. It was pretty crazy. Toji's reacting to the actual discharge of electricity, like the actual like energy portion or whatever, which if you know anything, just do a quick Google search. The actual like discharge, like the actual bolt of lightning, not the flash, but the actual energy portion or whatever, it moves at about a third of the speed of light, which would be about 100 million meters per second. Sorry, which that all becomes pretty insane once you consider the fact that this half-dead Sukuna that's fighting Kashimo is able to dodge an electromagnetic wave from Kashimo, right? So like the previous peak of the series in terms of speed is like a third of the speed of light, he's like a lightning speed level guy, right? And then Sukuna, while half dead after his Gojo fight, Kashimo runs up on him and he spits out this electromagnetic wave, and Sukuna dodges it at point blank speed. The speed of light itself is around 299.7 whatever million meters per second. It's like 299 million with some change or whatever, but basically around 300 million meters per second. And the speed of an electromagnetic wave in a vacuum, so like without like anything obstructing it, is around exactly 300 million meters per second. So they're both pretty much the same, but I guess you'd say an EM wave in like a perfect circumstance would be a little bit faster. But the point, right, is that Kashimo, who is attacking with these EM waves, these electromagnetic waves, the ones that Sukuna dodges, I mean, he's attacking with these waves that are light speed, right? By either way you want to slice it. And if you factor in the fact that Kashimo isn't just like spawning these EM waves, he's not like creating like an EM wave with like I don't know, like a natural, circumstance. He's doing this with his cursed energy, right? So if you factor in the fact that these EM waves would be baseline, light speed, and could possibly being amped, however many times over, or however much, you want to say is getting amped by Kashimo's, cursed energy output, then it's like, well, damn, dude, like Sukuna's over here, he has, I think, one arm after the Gojo fight. He's missing his fucking shoes. He has nothing. His belt's missing. He's covered in blood, right? He's completely destroyed. And he's over here dodging these, faster than light attacks from Kashimo. It's pretty insane. Especially when, the previous peak of the series was Toji, who, not to say Toji's only lightning speed, but his greatest feat in the series was, perceiving a lightning speed attack in slow motion. So it's pretty insane jump right there. But as I've established, right, and I mean, as you would know if you've read the manga, I won't say seen the anime because it's not animated yet, but if you've read the manga, and as I've established so far, Sukuna and Gojo are relative, or I'd say like equals, or they're matching each other, whatever terminology you want to use. They're matching each other's physicals. They're landing hits on each other, they're running around each other, they're dodging each other's attacks. Whatever you want to say, they're pretty much on the same tier of speed in that regard. And, that becomes pretty crucial once you look at the Kashimo fight, right? And Kashimo pulls out an attack that Sukuna can't dodge, okay? It's too fast for Sukuna to dodge, right? Something that completely blitzes him and destroys his body, right? And as I've already established, like I just said like 2 seconds ago, Sukuna and Gojo are already matching each other's stats throughout the entire fight, right? Both have been shown to be able to tag each other, react to each other's speeds, vice versa, whatever you want to say. Which means that Gojo himself would also lack the speed needed to dodge the attack that Kashimo uses, okay? The one like the little lightning beam that Kashimo uses that makes Sukuna transform into his Heian form. There's no way Gojo would have the speed to dodge that. Now, whether it would go through infinity or not, I don't think it would, because it's just an electricity beam. There's no real way to argue it would go through the barrier, but the point is that Gojo wouldn't have the speed to dodge it, okay? Maybe you could argue that if he knew preemptively that, this attack was going to happen from Kashimo, that Gojo could use his blue teleportation to leave the area, but that's not really what I'm arguing, right? I'm talking about movement speed, right? Like his actual, like how far, he can, or I guess how fast he can move his body, right? Like teleportation wouldn't really, count for that, right? It's because teleportation is more of an activation type thing, right? I'm just talking about his actual physical movement speed, right? There's no way he'd be able to dodge the Kashimo attack because, as I've already established, right, I'm repeating this for the 14th fucking time, which, if you've read the manga, you'd know, Sukuna and Gojo, or at least Sukuna in the Megami form, is equal / relative / matching Gojo, right? So when Kashimo whips out this, insanely fast lightning attack that completely blitzes Sukuna that he cannot dodge from, the same thing would happen for Gojo, right? So, as I've already said, right, this attack prompts Sukuna to transform into his true state, which this is the point where the whole message, the whole theme, the whole, structure, the whole skeleton of the video is really solidified, okay? If Gojo and Sukuna are matching each other during their fight, and then Sukuna is directly blitzed by a level of speed above what he can react to, then Gojo would as well, right? They're relative, I've already established that, right? So, if Sukuna were to then react to that level of speed after he himself gets stronger, then it would just naturally put him above what Gojo can contend with reasonably, right? That just stands to reason, right? And funnily enough, that's exactly what happens in the manga, okay? True form Sukuna completely dominates Kashimo, blatantly outspeeding him numerous times. Okay, it's pretty bad if you watch the fight. All right, people love to clown on Kashimo since he was killed in like I think a chapter and a half or like one chapter, but none of those people seem to acknowledge that not even Gojo would be able to throw hands of Sukuna in that form. Alright, I don't think anybody in the series would be able to. Not even, you could have Gojo and the entire Sukuna squad fighting Sukuna at the same time, and it would be pretty awful. Like, they wouldn't do much better. Back on track, though, we see that Kashimo is able to react to some of Sukuna's attacks, but he's not able to dodge them fully. Even when Sukuna directly tells Kashimo to dodge, he's like, hey, you should dodge this one. You know, he still gets clipped by the slash, and he's like, holy fuck, like, this guy's insane. And, you know, the point's pretty clear, you know, if you've read the manga, right? Like, Sukuna is dominating a fighter that is directly faster than Gojo, you know? As well as he has the power and durability to shrug off a 200% Hollow Purple from Gojo as well. I don't really know how much more people need to, you know, get their heads spun. I don't really know the analogy, right? Like, Kashimo's faster than what Gojo can deal with via directly blitzing a version of Sukuna that just went, you know, blow for blow to the death with Gojo, right? And then Sukuna gets stronger, blitzes that same Kashimo that would blitz Gojo, and then Sukuna himself has the durability to shrug off a 200% Hollow Purple. And that's in the Megami form. You know, he gets substantially stronger when he goes into the true form. So it's I don't know what like what do people really think Gojo's gonna do here? Yeah, I guess we can just move on to the hack slash technique, since that's really all there is to like talk about, I guess, right? Since it's clear as day that Sukuna has the best stats in the verse. I mean, many people try to cope and bring up the fact that, you know, true form Sukuna would have no way to bypass Infinity since he doesn't have the Maharaga to sit there and, you know, adapt or whatever. But I guess those people must have just been asleep or something when they were reading the manga, because Sukuna has multiple ways to get rid of the barrier that he uses in the fight. The first and most simple of which just being domain amplification. We see Sukuna use this in the opening of the fight. Some of the first pages, actually. It's like one of the first 12 or so pages of the fight, I'm pretty sure. He uses amplification. It's after he shoots the dismantle behind the little building to make Gojo look behind him, and then he runs up with a punch. And using domain amplification would allow Sukuna to open a neutral domain and pull Gojo's Limitless into that space. And I think Kusakabe describes this in the manga. I think Higuruma's there as well. There's like a few characters there in the manga when they describe how amplification works. But yeah, Sukuna just basically opens up a neutral space, which allows Gojo's curse technique, which would be the barrier technique, Limitless in this case, to enter that neutral space, which then would nullify the barrier. And when we see this happen in the manga, the only thing that Gojo can do at that point is to choose to drop the barrier. Otherwise, he'd be forced into this sort of Dragon Ball power struggle, beam struggle, you know, where Sukuna's basically just sitting there pouring his energy or whatever you want to say into this domain amplification, and they just kind of have to sit there forever until one of them would give out. And if this same scenario were to occur with true form Sukuna, right, because I acknowledge Megami Sukuna probably can't just use domain amplification one time and beat Gojo, but if this were to happen with the true form of Sukuna, I think he'd obviously win. Sukuna has much more cursed energy than Gojo to start off with, as well as just having way more of a monster stat advantage due to his, you know, with like his whole like speed and power and everything like that, like the scaling that I mentioned earlier. And due to also having 4 arms and 2 mouths, Sukuna would be able to have constant chance and hand signs up to boost the output and potency of his cursed energy slash attacks. We see this in the manga, specifically when he's like fighting Kashimo or whatever. Like, Kashimo calls him perfect and beautiful, and it's kind of gay, honestly, the way that he was describing Sukuna. But I mean, it's accurate to say the least. You know, like, he's basically like the ultimate death machine, bro. Like, he has every single like hacks ability, he has every single buff ability active at all times. Like, it's pretty ridiculous. You know, I mean, with the constant, you know, amps with like the whole chance and the hand signs up. I mean, even if you wanted to say that for some reason Sukuna is like equal to Gojo in his true form, with the extra amps from all the you know, chance and hand signs that I'm talking about, I mean, he would just be stronger. Just once again, he'd just be a tier above Gojo. So with that in mind, I mean, he would throttle Gojo in any sort of power struggle. I mean, Gojo even notes that himself when he's fighting the Megami version of Sukuna. I mean, you could argue that's why he drops the barrier instantaneously when Sukuna uses the amplification, right? Gojo chooses to just catch the punch of his hand normally instead of getting into this long, drawn-out power struggle of Sukuna. Probably because he realizes that if that were to occur, I mean, Sukuna might just win because he has way more energy. I mean, and that's shown with Yuta bringing up as much. Yuta brings up how Sukuna has, I think, twice as much curse energy as himself, and we know that Yuta has way more curse energy than Gojo. So, yeah, it makes sense, right? Like, even if Megami Sukuna wouldn't be able to, like, maybe kill Gojo right then and there, obviously, I think he'd probably win a clash of the domain amplification just by having more cursed energy. So, the domain amplification is a pretty nasty ability. It's pretty easy to get through. Or not easy to get through, but it's a pretty powerful way that Sukuna can neutralize the barrier and make Gojo fight without it. That's the main thing, right? It's like, obviously domain amplification isn't just going to destroy the barrier completely, but it's going to make Gojo fight normally, which, that's going to be pretty important. The second way that Sukuna would be able to get through Infinity is just by simply expanding his domain, right? And I mean, we see this in the manga, right? In the first opening clash that they have, Sukuna shatters Gojo's domain, right? And the reasoning for that is because his domain covers a larger area than Gojo's, so he's just able to slash the outside of the barrier, which is weak to attacks. So yeah, I mean, in character, Gojo has to figure out how to switch the conditions of his barrier in order to get around Sukuna's extra range. But in the true form scenario, that would never occur, right? This whole condition flipping and whole learning how Sukuna's domain works. That would never happen, because in the first clash with, true form Sukuna, Sukuna would just shatter Gojo's domain and kill him with the slashes. Like, think of the same scenario that happened in the manga, but replace Sukuna, the Megami form, right? Replace the Megami Sukuna with a much stronger true form Sukuna that is constantly amping himself with hand signs and chants. And it becomes obvious, right? Like, remember when Gojo was he was like black, it looked like he was bleeding from every single pore in his body, dude. He looked like a fucking, I don't even know, he just looked black on the page. He was completely covered in blood, right? If that same scenario happened, but those slashes are hitting 2 or 3 times stronger because Sukuna's in his true form, amping himself with those insane amps, then yeah, dude, I mean, Gojo's gonna get torn to pieces right then and there, right? And then for some reason, if Gojo's able to stand, not die to that, he's going to also have to deal with Sukuna himself in the true form, running around the radius of the domain, punching and kicking the fuck out of him, while those slashes also destroy him. Like, I don't really know where these Gojo fans are really, like, where are they coming from? Like, I don't see their point. I don't really see the argument for Gojo in this case. Domain expansion and amplification are more than enough to either nullify, neutralize, or just straight up bypass Infinity. Which, if you think about it, once again, if you've read the manga, that seems to be a prevailing theme here, which is that Sukuna has the tools to basically get around everybody in the series, right? Whether that be Gojo, whether that be Kashimo, whether that be anybody, right? Domain amplification and expansion are enough to pretty much get rid of anybody in the series. The only reason that he really chooses to go through this long, drawn-out, epic battle with Gojo is simply to get a better curse technique, That's the whole theme of why he's even the strongest to begin with, right? And I kind of touch on this theme in my whole, like, defensive JJK video. The reason why the reason why Sukuna chooses to, go through this long, drawn-out fight and not just instantly murder Gojo in his true form is because he wants to advance his curse technique. He wants to prevail as the strongest and, continue growing and, never stopping and being a calamity and always, pursuing whatever the fuck, right? Whatever you want to say the narrative is, the whole being the strongest, right? Like, I talk about that for like 25 minutes in the one video. But yeah, it just basically, it comes down to the fact that Sukuna's a calamity, dude. He doesn't want to ever stop. He's never going to stop. He's always going to grow. He's always going to adapt. He's always going to be stronger, right? So it's like he chooses to go through this whole song and dance specifically to get stronger, right? And people mistake that for him, like, being fodder or being fraud Kuna or something. And it's like, dude, at any point he wants, he could just turn on the fucking burners and just destroy literally everybody in the verse, right? You would just blitz in front of them faster than Maki, faster than Toji, faster than Kashimo, faster than Gojo. He would turn on the domain. He would literally slice up everybody in the verse. And if for some reason they managed to survive, he would just do it again. He would just open a second domain. He would turn on the fucking furnace. He would open up Fuga, alright? He would start grilling everybody. It would be awful, man. It would be so bad. You know? I mean, I don't... that might just have to be the end of the video right there. I mean... I've been writing this video for maybe like, I don't know, an hour or so, just kind of like getting my thoughts together, and I don't think there's really any counterexamples. The only possible thing you could say is like Sukuna doesn't have any mind hacks resistance to Unlimited Void, but I don't think he would ever get into the domain, right? I think if Gojo and him ever were to fight off or square off, right, Sukuna would just expand his domain faster than Gojo, right? I already established that he's faster than Gojo, so he would just simply run up on him faster than Gojo could react, open his domain faster than Gojo could react, and that would be that. And even if, hypothetically, Gojo did catch him in the domain, Sukuna can just simply use domain amplification to get rid of that, you know? So, I don't... Yeah, that's pretty tough. I guess one last thing I'll touch on is maybe like, you know, oh, Sukuna only won because of the binding vows. He's not actually the strongest. He's just like a cheater. And it's like, I mean, yeah, man, like, you know, he's a sorcerer, right? Like, he's a calamity. His whole theme is to just not stop until he achieves his goal. You know, he just kind of eats up everything in his path until he becomes what he sets out to do or become, right? So it's like, yeah, I mean, he does use a lot of binding vows. He does break a lot of rules. He does kind of just say fuck you to a lot of things that are considered impossible. But, shocker, it's because he's the strongest. Alright? Like, duh. That's the whole fucking point, dude. Literally, chapter 1 of the manga is named after Sukuna, okay? The dishonored one, right? Like, or the disgraced one, I think, right? Like, chapter 1 is literally not, it's like, that's how you know, man, alright? Like, literally every single manga, like, chapter 1 is introducing, like, the main people, the main guys. Chapter 1 of JJK is about Sukuna, alright? He is the top, he's the top guy, right? Like, there's nothing else to really say here. But, yeah, just to give a quick closer, you know, just to give a quick recap, the video was pretty much just scaling Megami Sukuna to Gojo, putting them equal to each other, relative, then directly scaling Kashimo above what Sukuna can react to, and then just putting true form Sukuna just many tiers above Kashimo, and then just describing how Sukuna with domain amplification as well as amplification as well as domain expansion can get around Gojo's barrier techniques, right? So with amplification, he can nullify the barrier technique by, you know, creating a neutral domain and then having Gojo's curse technique flow into it, right? That's described in the manga, which we also see that happen in the manga. So he would just, you know, Gojo would be forced to drop the barrier and fight Sukuna with his hand normally. And then as well for domain expansion, Sukuna can just simply expand his domain, shatter Gojo's barrier from the outside with his extended range, and due to being significantly stronger than he was in the Megami form, those slashes that hit Gojo initially in the manga, the ones that turned him like completely black, he looked like a blacked out sketch on the manga, those slashes that hit him before would be multiple times stronger because Sukuna himself is multiple times stronger in the Heian form. So, you know, Gojo's going to be turned into like a minced can of tuna fish, basically, right? Just packed up and chopped up into a million pieces. It would be pretty terrible. And if for some reason he's able to survive the onslaught of slashes, he's also going to have to deal with Sukuna himself running around the radius of the domain doing whatever he wants. He could be doing the whip, he could be doing the nene, he could be doing the yoinky splinky, right? He could be reading JJK itself, he could be reading the manga while, you know, Gojo's getting fried. And there's nothing that Gojo could really do, you know? And then even if we give him the, you know, we give Gojo the ultimate wank off, we say he survives the yoinky splinky from Sukuna, he survives the domain slashes, Sukuna just opens a second domain and does the Fuga technique and incinerates whatever's left of Gojo. Like, it's awful. Okay, if you read the manga, if you understand what happens, If you know how amplification, how expansion works, it's pretty clear, right? Sukuna can just run up on Gojo, make him drop the barrier, expand his domain, and annihilate him. And in the true form, in the Heian form, he has the significant stat advantage, whether it be speed, attack potency, durability, whatever you want to say. He completely gaps Gojo in literally every single metric. The only thing you could say is, like, I guess Sukuna doesn't have the ability to inject a possibly infinite amount of, well, yeah, obviously infinite, multiple tiers of infinite information into a person's mind, okay? Sukuna doesn't have infinitely, potent mind hacks, but here's the thing, he could just use the counter, right? He doesn't need the infinite potency mind hacks when he can just use domain amplification to nullify it. So, or, alternatively, simply blitz the person that has those infinite mind hacks before they can even employ them. Because as I established in the video, Sukuna is significantly faster than Gojo, which also would apply to his domain expansion speed. I don't know if I touched on that too much. I think I mentioned it once, but if Sukuna is significantly faster than he was in the Megami form, right after he transforms into the Heian state, then his domain expansion speed would also be significantly faster. So if Gojo and Sukuna are able to clash domains when Sukuna's in the way weaker Megami form, then why the fuck would they clash after Sukuna gets way faster and stronger, right? Sukuna would also be able to expand his domain way faster than he was before. So they would never clash. Sukuna would just blitz Gojo in literally every single scenario. And then even if they did clash, right, like they opened at the same time, Sukuna shatters Gojo's domain like he does in the original timeline of the series. Gojo gets turned into Chop Suey, and that's that. There's nothing really else to touch on, right? Sukuna is the king of JJK. He's the king of curses. And yeah, I'm Sauceman K, your wonderful host. I might try to upload more. We're going to be maybe doing some collaborations with people. My buddy Carpet on Disc, my good boy Carpet on Disc. He might be featuring me on the channel, so we might be doing a couple collab videos. But as for now, you're just going to have to deal with this 20, 26, 27 minute slop fest that I put together at 2 in the morning. But yeah, that was why Sukuna is the strongest character in JJK. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, hit that like button, hit the sub button.